We live in perilous times. Up is down and down is up. Politics has become a religion. People self-identify by their political party more than almost anything else. We're consumed by our politics. Americans now regularly borrow on false information and present it as truth. This is something that happens in both parties, to be sure. But the comfort of false equivalencies is an intellectually hollow shelter. It's a natural inclination for a fair person, or even those in the media, to present both sides as being to blame. It's a natural human characteristic. Basic fairness. But that internal desire to be fair does a tremendous disservice to truth. It's a simple idea to comprehend. So let's play a game. I'm going to pick a subject, and you get to make a corresponding defense. This gives us the fair and balanced approach to representing both sides. Okay, so for example, as a product of a Jewish grandmother who was imprisoned by the Nazis in Belgium, I'm going to go ahead and take the position that Hitler was an evil man and the actions of the Nazis are indefensible. That's my position. Okay, it's your turn to defend Hitler. Take all the time you need. That's the world we live in now, with few sanctuaries for truth to hide. I'll take another position. President Trump is a horrible liar. He's an incredibly dishonest and racist man who has left a trail of fraud, criminal behavior, bankruptcies, lie after lie after lie after lie, and ultimately a man who's guilty, at least in my mind, of high crimes and misdemeanors. This is a man who is now impugning the reputation of not just one former FBI director, James Comey, the guy whose investigation he's illegally tried to obstruct. Now he and his troll army are attacking and impugning the character of a second former FBI director, Robert Mueller. And the worst part about it is the party before country folks, you know, we call them Republicans now, they swallow it up like they're getting an award for winning the banana challenge. You can practically watch them marinate in their misinformation. You know these people. They're the ones that want to talk about how the real crime is being perpetrated by Susan Rice and Hillary Clinton and Loretta Lynch instead of confronting their cognitive dissonance over Trump's continuous lies. These are the 85% of self-described Republicans who think our president of the Electoral College of the United States, Donald Trump, is doing a bang-up job, but thought that President Obama was a horrible president. Here are some other telltale signs. They call themselves pro-life Christians while simultaneously saying things like, healthcare isn't a right. I'm not even going to get into the whole discussion about those same people supporting restricting birth control to limit abortions or their wild support for bombing the holy fuck out of the Middle East because, you know, they're Muslim. We're talking about a target-rich environment right now, but I'm going to focus specifically on healthcare isn't a right. Right. So let's flip that around. Life isn't a right. Nobody has the right to life. That's what they're really saying. The so-called strict constitutionalists, so-called self-described conservatives say life isn't a right. Well, they say those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. And here we are. It was once said, quote, "We hold these truths to be sacred and undeniable, that all men are created equal and independent, that from that equal creation they derive rights inherent and inalienable, among which are the preservation of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness." Truths that are sacred and undeniable. The preservation of life. Republicans want to go back to a day where if you get sick, you're totally fucked. But they call that liberty, you know, like in Somalia. Tell the parent of a child with congenital heart disease who doesn't have the bank account of Jimmy Kimmel that their kid has the right to die because their kid doesn't have the right to live.
We were brought up to believe that we live in the greatest country in the world, but until a few years ago, millions and millions of us had no access to health insurance at all. You know, before 2014, if you were born with congenital heart disease like my son was, there was a good chance you'd never be able to get health insurance because you had a pre-existing condition. You were born with a pre-existing condition. If your parents didn't have medical insurance, you might not live long enough to even get denied because of a pre-existing condition. If your baby is going to die, and it doesn't have to, it shouldn't matter how much money you make. I think that's something that, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or something else, we all agree on that, right? I mean, we do. And I saw a lot of families there, and no parent should ever have to decide if they can afford to save their child's life. It just shouldn't happen. Not here.
Of course, it's hard to imagine Christ espousing those same ideals, because we live in the upside down. When so-called conservatives, so-called Christians say they're pro-life, many of them really mean they're pro-birth, and then, sorry kid, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. For me, it's pretty easy. You don't get the right to say you're a follower of Jesus at the same time you're stomping all over the ideals he espoused. And of course, these are the folks who always put party ahead of country without even knowing it. They're the strict constitutionalists who think it's okay to attack or jail journalists. These are the same folks who say they're pro-life but want to bomb the Muslims. They're the same folks who called for a violent insurrection to fight back against the Obama administration, who treaded all up on them. They're the proud patriots whose ancestors come from another country but want to ban all the non-white immigrants. They're the American firsters who always call for cuts to the social safety net of Americans while calling for giving more and more billions to Israel. You know, the apartheid state. These are the same people who have literally no fucking understanding of anything for which they speak, but America, and they took our jobs, and all that jazz. And they would do well to read from George Washington's farewell address, because if anyone ever needed to internalize these words, it's the so-called American conservative. George Washington wrote about the danger of political parties in American affairs. He said, quote, "The common and continual mischiefs of the spirit and party are sufficient to make it the interest and the duty of a wise people to discourage and restrain it. It serves always to distract the public councils and enfeeble the public administration. It agitates the community with ill-founded jealousies and false alarms, kindles the animosity of one part against another, foments occasionally riot and insurrection. It opens the door to foreign influence and corruption, which find a facilitated access to the government itself through the channels of party passion." And here we are, comrades. I punamo nam nusno impeachmentarofat Trumpa. My name is Daniel Goldman. This is Content News, where we are always free to share the truth.